Hi, Jasmine.
Hi, Renee.
Well, I'll start out with the same question that I ask everybody on the podcast. Do you consider yourself to be a data scientist?
Sure, yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think it has a lot of internal thought about how you perceive yourself, but I would have to say I do consider myself a data scientist, probably by default. I don't feel like I fit into traditional buckets in terms of like a statistician or computer science. And even as an engineer, I didn't fully feel like I fit into that bucket. And so data science and the title data scientist has like this really nice blend of all those different types of skills that it's just kind of, I feel at home in calling myself a data scientist.
That's great. So let's talk about how you got here. So when you were younger, were you particularly tech savvy or into science or anything that indicated that you were going to take this route?
I think I was. In middle school and high school, I participated in Science Olympiad, which is like a roundabout like science competitions that they have. You compete against other schools, and so I was even a co-captain one year. So I think at that onset, I knew that I was going to be in some type of STEM field, and then I think that's what I think led me down this path and always being involved in STEM topics.
Then what did you do when you got to college?
I majored in biomedical engineering, and that was, at the time, a really good fit. I really enjoyed the multidisciplinary approaches in problem solving, in advanced mathematics, and design. And so I think I parlay those skills, and even though I'm not doing biomedical engineering on a day-to-day basis as a data scientist, I'm still problem solving, I'm still thinking about our end user, and I'm still trying to understand how those two skills can be met through exploring the data science process.
Okay, let's talk about that a little more. So what's an example of something that you did during your degree or early work in biomedical engineering that you use now? What's one of the transferable skills?
I would have to say very little, but to come up with a skill, I think just general problem-solving skills. Like in engineering, you have you have a design problem. I need to design a product. It needs to fit this type of criteria. It's going to be used on a patient, so it needs to meet this amount of mechanical strength. But then when you go and as a data scientist right now, I approach this is the question that our business partners want answered. These are the different types of machine learning and statistical analysis skills that I can produce to help achieve that end goal. And it still has some of the same sort of inclinations when you think about in problem solving and sort of like almost like the scientific method. So yeah, I think that's probably like the most transferable skill. I did a lot of computer-aided design in my undergraduate degree, so I don't do that at all.
Well, and probably also just understanding the problem too, because that's kind of the first step of problem solving. And I know that in my engineering work too, it's the same thing. Like just even understanding what's being asked is a really good skill to gain. So when you were in that degree program, were you thinking at all about anything like data science, or how did you get from there to data science?
Oh yeah, I don't think I was thinking at all about it, but the end of my senior year, I started getting involved in more computer-aided design, advanced manufacturing, and computational programming just on the side. And so that's what kind of led me. I started doing, there was a class on EDX, computational programming and data science. And 2 years ago, it just seemed like a really interesting step, but I didn't have it with full intentions to be like, I'm going to be a data scientist. This is what I need to do. I was just sort of interested as sort of that evolution from engineering programming to, computational programming in a way.
And then did you go right from your bachelor's program into a master's program?
I did in a way. I started on a project in between there. I wanted to make sure that, I wanted to actually be a data scientist. Sometimes you get into programs, you're like, oh, this is a horrible mistake. And so I wanted to do some type of data scientist work and a project to help me understand what I'd be getting ready for. And so that was a project that kind of just actually wrapped up, and that was involved in bioinformatics, which was the nice stepping stone from biomedical engineering to data science.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a great like sort of real world project I did with a research mentor that I found in Connecticut where I live.
Okay, so let's talk about how that started. So how did you even come up with the idea or get connected with your mentor?
Yeah, I like cold emailed him. I was just generally looking for advice on graduate school programs and how to get more experience in programming. And I got some feedback from other people. Like I had like sort of like phone interviews, but this professor, Dr. Danzig, I'll call his name out, he actually like made an earnest effort to reach out to me and give me advice and involve me in his research, what he was doing, which is developing bioinformatics tools and software using R. And so that was kind of like my introduction. He was like, oh, like I would be more than willing to help with you. Do you mind learning R? And so that's kind of how I got started. Yeah, and I was just kind of, I had no affiliation with his university. Like, I was just sort of this random person off the street, and he was just really excited to, like, meet with me and learn. And so that's kind of how we got kind of synced up, and it's been, like, a very awesome roller coaster thus far.
Yeah, so how did that go? So, like, what were the first things you learned, and were you just learning on your own and learning online?
Yeah, so he kind of like helped me as a mentor set up with some resources, pointed me to some Coursera classes, and he even sent me some of his students like homework assignments that he gives in class for learning. And I just started meeting with him every other week. I had like a really great arrangement with my previous employer, and I would work sort of like a flexible schedule, and then I would drive up to the other half of the state and meet with my research advisor, and we'd go over, you know, this is how you use the tool. This is sort of, you know, at that certain step, this is what we want implemented. And it was a nice iterative approach and introduction to R and informatics and actually producing a data product, which is usually like the end goal of a data science project. Yeah, it turned out to be a really great project and really helped focus, you know, creating a tool for especially non-technical users. You get to understand and stretch your thinking about the requirements that they would need in terms of software development. And then while also having that limited feature of using R and Shiny, which in 2014, did not have all the amazing cool features that it does now.
Okay, so as you viewers on YouTube can see, I magically gained a headset. Jasmine and I are having some audio issues, so I'll re-ask that question. So you were learning R and Shiny for a project, but you weren't taking classes for that. So how did you learn the programming language in the Shiny package?
Yeah, so I started off like a lot of other people in the Johns Hopkins courses for a little bit, and then I kind of stopped halfway through. I think I was taking way too many of them at the same time, and so it wasn't really helping. I was just crowding on knowledge. But I found really helpful. Shiny's documentation page had step-by-step tutorials, and so I just kind of like. I really, in deeply went through there. I would take what I learned from there, and then I would apply it to my project and try and see if I can fix things and alter them in that sense.
Cool. So tell us more about the actual project. So what were you trying to accomplish with it, and what was the outcome?
Yeah, so we were trying to create a Shiny application that does gene expression analysis in a little bit more an easier fashion than there's a current tool by the National Institute of Health. I don't know who can say that either. I don't know. I should be embarrassed. They have the NIH. They have a tool that uses R, but it's extremely cumbersome. It doesn't do a lot of type of analyses that a traditional bioinformatician would actually use. So we set out to make a tool that would be able to provide differential expression analysis, survival analysis, generate code, generate publication-ready graphics, which is usually what you want at the ending stage. You want to be able to analyze this data and then create research papers and involvement. And we do this in a way where the user doesn't have to know our programming.
Okay, and we should probably explain a little bit too. So can you kind of summarize what is Shiny, and then also what is the gene expression analysis? So what would somebody use this for as a scientist? What would they maybe be looking at if I don't know what gene expression means?
Yeah, definitely. So first up, Shiny is a package in R that allows you to create web applications. Only knowing R, you don't have to know front-end development or HTML or CSS, but it does help if you do. And then sort of gene expression analysis, somebody who would use this tool would be interested in understanding how certain genes are potentially related to certain outcomes, such as, does a certain group that have this high expression of, the BRCA gene, are they more likely to get cancer? And just trying to find the sort of prognostic indicators about that. And this tool allows somebody to have sort of the limited knowledge that it would take to do that, to still be able to be in control of their data, still have the ability to run, because data sets can be really large, and so then you need a data scientist, and you need somebody experienced in biology, and that's not at everybody's luxury, and people who are not as technical still need to be able to run these analyses and be involved in their community and with work assignments. So the tool offers a really nice, easy platform for somebody to run sort of like these really advanced like survival analyses plots and make sort of all these inferences. And also, if they are technical, they can the software tool generates the R code so that you can then take it and run it back in RStudio.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, I was really excited. I did the bulk of the work during Google Summer of Code in 2015. So that was a great experience, just learning to be a part of the open source community, interacting with other people on Twitter, of course, because that's that's the other community that we all love.
Yep.
Twitter's amazing. And then we just published a paper in the bioinformatics journal detailing what the software does and, putting it out there for, feedback. And we've gotten some people I think I got a feedback, somebody in like Switzerland had installed it for like their psychiatrist in their lab. I have no idea. Sometimes you create these tools and you don't think people are going to actually use it, but sometimes I guess they do.
So your very first data project, first of all, you learned a brand new language, you learned a new package, you started working with real scientists, and you published a paper.
I don't know.
That's impressive, Jasmine.
Thanks. I guess I just have a lot of free time, honestly. That's probably it.
So what did you personally gain from that project? So I mean, this is incredible. What came out of it? Do you feel like it was a good launching point for your career as a data scientist? I
think absolutely. It gave me, that was what I talked about a lot on job interviews. That's what I talked a lot. Just trying to be in part of the open source community and offering like, hey, these are my contributions, and it helped me feel sort of validated in a way that I was working on something that would actually be, important to other people. And I just got, a lot of experience out of it. And I got a lot better at R, which is, sort of like what my passion is. It was a really rewarding project, and I think it was like the best way for me to make that entryway into being a data scientist.
That's so cool. And you were on an R podcast, so how did that fit in with all this project?
Yeah, I got to give it up to you. Podcasts are hard to keep up with. That was once again me just sort of like cold calling or like answering somebody's tweet and being like, hey, like I'd be interested. Like I want to be involved. I want to learn from other people. And it was a really awesome group. I think there might be a stray interview we did with Bromnoff. So I'm hoping that insight will come out later. But yeah,
we'll have to link to it in the show notes.
Yeah, hopefully. I hope it's being edited. But yeah, it was really cool. It was a great way to just like actually start meeting people and not being like this next level up from being this sort of rando on Twitter that's tagging people, even though that's totally fine too. But yeah.
So what was it like? What was the interview process like? So tell me, what kind of jobs were you applying to, and how did that go? I mean, you said you talked about your project, but what was the whole process like?
Yeah, so interviews were interesting. Data science interviews are super different than what I've been used to, which were engineering interviews.
So what were some of the differences?
So usually when you show up for an engineering interview the day, you're there to test your skills. You're there to show them what you can do. A data science interview, they've given you a project beforehand. You've done some type of really awesome data analysis project that shows, hey, I can do this before you even meet me. So usually the interview when you go there is low stress. Like, you shouldn't be writing on a whiteboard. It should be more of the cultural fit. And so I found that to be really preferable, I think, because how are you going to show, from an engineering standpoint or even general jobs, it's really hard to make that, like, really good first impression in that really short time span. So data science, on the next level, I've tried to test all these different types of, like, skills that not a lot of people progress altogether, but it does give you a lot of opportunity to really show your best foot forward as a candidate and, potential team member.
And I'm sure, like, that transition you made from your undergraduate program into what you did with this project, that was a huge showcase piece for you.
Yeah, I still talk. I'm going to talk about it forever. Like, it was a lot of fun. It was the most probably comprehensive thing I've done, like, thus far. Like, I do a lot of, like, side projects that take maybe 6 hours, but nothing has taken like 2 years and has the outcomes that it does. So. Yeah.
So what were the type of jobs you were applying for, and what kind of response did you get?
Yeah, so, like, as, like, somebody who was just like, I really want to be a data scientist, you sort of have, like, blanket applications, this is not a good approach. You're not going to get any responses back. But I was generally looking for a place that would be really receptive to somebody that was new, somebody that, was going to be learning on the job, but still had, like, a real thirst for knowledge. And those kind of positions can be hard to find.
So were you specifically looking for junior-type data science postings, or how did you find this?
Yeah, I was looking for, like, junior levels, like associate data science positions. Even, like, it's hard, too, because you have to, like, kind of change the language, like, data analyst this or business intelligence, and so it can be really difficult to even find a job that matches. I was on LinkedIn. Stack Overflow has a career portal. I just sort of got involved with trying to find data science things in my area in Connecticut, which kind of seemed small until I realized that, like, this is the insurance capital of the world. Like, insurance is very big into data science and analytics, and so that's when I've kind of got, like, my first real data science role.
Yeah, so tell us about this job you eventually landed.
Yeah, so my first role, I got an internship. And so it was like a really weird occasion. Like, they were like, you're applying for a summer internship, but since you're here, let's bring you in during the year. And so I worked in auto insurance, which is, spoiler alert, not that interesting.
So wait, you were applying for a job for the next summer, and they said, well, come on in now since you're in town? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I think their usual effect was that, interns are, from all parts of the country, but I'm just, this career changer that happened to have been, in the state nearby. So
what did you get to learn while you were doing this boring auto insurance?
Like, it's always like the subject matter may not be the most interesting, but hopefully like the actual
some people.
That's why people major in actuarial science. I couldn't do it, but I'm sure it's interesting to other people. But yeah, I'm one of the biggest aspects that I got out of that entire experience was becoming more of a predictive modeler, which is an entire another level. Like, I thought I was good at R. I thought I was good at Shiny and creating web applications. I could not believe the joy that I felt in, like, trying to, like, predict the future. Like, how can we create a predictive model? Like, what is a GLM and all these different attributes? And that's what I was really taught, because that's what insurance is, that analytics baseline, and that's how they use data science. And so that kind of parlayed into, I got an associate position there, doing the exact same thing. So it was great. I took a week off for my internship and came back and was at my desk.
What kind of stuff were you predicting at this job at the auto insurance company?
Yeah, so a lot of the models were centered around predicting premium, which is the amount, the insurance company says you owe them for them insuring you. And then a lot of another subset aspect, there's a lot of features that are involved in there, so you get really comfortable with feature selection and feature engineering in that aspect. And so that's what I spent really a bulk of my time on when I was there, building out models related to understanding, what are the features we can then feed back in.
Okay, and then what was the next step for you in your career?
Yeah, so I made the transition to my current job at Simple, where I am a data scientist.
And what is Simple?
Yeah, Simple is a really cool company, but besides that, they provide a banking account and a really great personalized sort of customer service appeal. So they're not just like the big banks that a lot of people have some more mistrust for. They offer real people that you can talk to. They offer tools that you can use to save for your life. You can save for a vacation and become more financially and situationally aware of what's going on in your finances.
What do you do there?
Yeah, so I do really interesting data science work, really trying to also understand what our customers will want, what kinds of features we can implement, understanding how they're using the product. And I've only been there for 2 months, but yeah, that's sort of the things that we're involved in and really doing a lot of research and understanding behavioral aspects as well.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So you've just gone through this whole from school to project to job to another job in a pretty short period of time. So there's a lot of people that are just behind you in the stage in data science that say, how do I do what you did? So what advice do you have for people that are maybe just coming out of school and trying that first project? What should they focus on to make sure they can launch right into a career like you did?
Yeah, I would say my biggest advice would just be to work on a project and then make it discoverable, make sure that it is, it's on GitHub, it's on a blog, it's, record a video of yourself walking and talking through your analyses and your steps. That's how people are going to discover you and become interested in what you're interested in, and then it really shows your passion. I think that's what people are interested in too.
That idea of recording yourself talking through the steps, I think that's a great idea because it shows that you can communicate the results, which a lot of people find is the difficult part in hiring a data scientist, that they could find, statisticians and people that have the research experience, but not necessarily people that have the communication experience. So is that something you did to practice communicating?
So I was on GitHub. I felt like that was really important to detail the projects that I was working on. I also participated a lot in Twitter. It just it may be really strange to reach out to somebody or tag them, but it's really important. It really does show that you're interested and you're dedicated to the community. And so I think that's the most fruitful thing you can do to take yourself to the next level and get that data scientist job that you want.
So you mentioned you were in a master's program. So have you've been in multiple master's programs? Do you have plans for that? Is that something you want to continue? I know everybody in this field, I think, is jumping from thing to thing. So I think people will be interested to hear where you're at with that and what your plans are.
Yeah, that's my crux. I started out in the Master's of Predictive Analytics program at DePaul University, and I thought it was really interesting. I really wanted to transition into a job, and I really thought that was the way that I was going to learn the information. I was going to meet other like-minded professionals and individuals, but I don't know. It just turned out to not be what I was interested in, and then I went to Johns Hopkins Engineering for Professionals and took some courses in their computer science department because I wanted, I was sort of going through a conflicting sort of data scientist phase, what am I, a statistician, what am I, a computer scientist, these are the skills I need. And so, I left there, and I went back to DePaul this fall because I'm super wishy-washy like that. And I think I just had to really write down my intentions about what I did what I wanted to join that program for, and I wanted to, you know, meet other people, learn new skills, and get a data scientist job. And that all for me happened before I graduated from that program. So I'm on leave right now. I think I'm going to spend my time focusing on learning some skills myself. There's so many resources, and that's also like the pain that you feel like, oh, I'm paying so much money, and there's such amazing resources out there that you can learn if you're super dedicated. But if you need that structured learning format, of course, like actual coursework is totally fine. But I've got some links up, and I've got some other courses and some books that I'm going to read, and I think that thus far I feel confident enough to know that I can do it on my own for right now.
That's great. And so a lot of people ask me, do you find that did you have any trouble in the interview process not having a master's degree? Did that end up mattering?
Not really, because at the point I was doing interviews, I was like in the process, like I was a graduate candidate, and so I would be able to talk about that. But if I'm being honest, during my interviews, I very rarely talked about the projects I did in school, because they were not as impressive as things that I did on my own free time. And so I kind of felt like, you know, I'm in classes, and especially being in online learning, I didn't really feel connected to the other students and the professors. Like I had, you know, not had that traditional school experience where, you know, an undergraduate, if you're on campus, it's the life of the party. It's more of a connection with your education. And so an online master's program for me, I just didn't feel the right fit. And I thought it was fine. And I think I can still speak to projects and my involvement in the art community, and not to overshadow not having a master's degree.
Yeah, and I just think nowadays there's so much demand for data science projects and data scientists. It's like what you said, like if people feel that they really need that structure, it makes sense to go to school if you like being in school.
Yeah.
But it's not for everybody, and like you said, like online programs, I was in an online master's degree program too, and it is very different than being in a school, and like you said, the networking and everything. So that's great that you didn't have any trouble getting a job without it, because I think it's really experience based. A lot of the data science jobs, they say they require a master's degree, but if you have a comparable amount of experience, they're going to want you because you can do the work.
Definitely.
Okay, so are there any resources that you typically return to, like online, or anything that you would recommend, particular books or websites, or maybe just Twitter?
Yeah. So
what do you use a lot?
Yeah, the RStats hashtag on Twitter is just full of tons of knowledge, and people bring up really interesting conversations. If you're into R, I'm sure it's the same for Python programmers. A resource that I find myself kind of bookmarking all the time is Hadley Wickham's advanced R book. It's sort of that next level, like you know how to program and you know how to do these things, but if you really understand the theory behind them and why things are, you know, different, you know, S3 versus S4 classes, that's what I find myself in my current stage always reflecting back, because it helps to understand, you know, what I'm doing and not just kind of zombie typing on the computer. So
that's cool. And you keep mentioning that R is your passion. So what is it that you like? Is it the actual programming languages? Is it solving the problems? I mean, what are your favorite things about being a data scientist?
Yeah, I definitely took to R, I think, a little bit easier than I took to Python, and I learned Python first. I think what does it for me for you know, R programming is its community is like super vibrant. Like people will go out of their way to help you. They'll send you code snippets. They'll try and, you know, answer your questions on Stack Overflow, and that's what keeps people around. It's not that, you know, R is better than Python or another language is better than another Python. It's the people that really bring you together. And I've had the opportunity. I went to the UseR conference in Stanford this summer, and it was absolutely amazing experience. I was absolutely terrified, and then I left leaving like meeting people and, you know, understanding new topics and just feeling a lot more comfortable. So it's definitely the people, the hard people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, how can people find you online, and how can people connect with you and see these projects that you've done?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter, at Jasmine Dumas. And then my blog / webpage, I think they're one and the same for me, is jazzdumas.github.io. And I post blog posts. There's links to my projects, links to my R packages that I've written. Yeah, and you can hit me up on Twitter. I'm not weird about anything. So.
Not any weirder than the rest of us data scientists.
Yeah. Yeah, totally cool.
Okay, well, Jasmine, thank you so much for talking with me today, and I'm sure a lot of people will be excited to hear about your experience and your recent entry into data science. And thanks so much for sharing your experiences. This has been fun.
Awesome. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for this platform and just, doing everything that you do to, help and inspire other people.
Oh, thank you. All right, see you later.
See you later.